Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Zain. It's me, Zain, the belt guy. As always, there's the belt, here's the guy. But enough about me, you already know who I am. More important, let's get to our guest today. Um, while I'm sitting down, I probably should be standing up for this individual. And that's how you probably know this individual best by, I would say, taglines, content creation. The guy's been in the game for a long time. But what do we really know about the guy? Me, not so much. But I'm going to get to know him a little bit today, and hopefully you do too. So let's go ahead and welcome the Entertainah aboard, ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on, man? It's a pleasure to be on. Not a bad stand-up. That was pretty good. Pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean,
Very solid.
I can't take your thing, right? I just got to reference it. I'm not stealing your thunder here. That's a you thing, and you got to rock with it, man.
Yeah, man. Excited to be on. Excited to talk. Wherever the conversation takes us, I'm excited to talk with you tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. And Darius is in the room. Darius, again, a great supporter of all things New York Giants. I still don't know if he's a real person because he supports everyone all the time. So I feel like maybe he's a clone, maybe AI. I don't know. But I appreciate Darius being here. Darius is great. And Darius will respond to that comment because Darius does respond.
I see him on Twitter all the time, Darius.
Darius is great. I'm not even joking when I say he's one of the best supporters. He literally supports everybody, and I appreciate that. So the Entertainah, aka Chris. That is your name, Chris.
That is my name. That is my name.
Chris, you've been in this like a while. I can't say you're one of the first, but I think that's kind of fair to kind of put you in that bucket, right? Do you think
I
that's
think, yeah. I mean, there was definitely like a different vibe of Giants YouTube when I first started, but it wasn't like it is now, where you have people like doing like podcasts. At least from what I saw when I first started. And even I didn't really start that way. I started more for fun, and then it just kind of developed into what it is now, where I have, 17 and 18-minute podcast. I go live, talk seriously about the team, and now it's kind of just ballooned. There's so many people that do it now. So yeah, I do think I was at least part of the beginning or near the beginning of content creation on YouTube for the New York Giants, or at least I feel that way. At least the way that the content is now.
Sure. And that's what I say. I think that's fair to say that if you start looking back to this path where, like you said, almost, I'm not gonna say everyone's doing it, but a lot of people are doing it now. There's a lot of people in that industry or market of content creation, if you want to call it a high level, whether that's podcasting, whatever. But if you move backwards in time, I mean, you've been doing it for a while. So when did you do your first, and we'll just say content creation, not necessarily on YouTube, but what's your first thing that you did that you can recall saying that, you know what, I did this specifically for the Giants?
Yeah, YouTube. I actually started, my first content I did was actually Knicks content, believe it or not, when I first started. Because the Giants, I had started right after the draft when we took Saquon Barkley. Maybe like 2 weeks after that. And it was funny. Most people aren't going to see this because I don't have it up on my channel anymore. When I first started, and my OGs may remember this, like people that first subscribed to my channel, I actually thought it was a cool idea, but it just never worked out because my friend got married. He had a kid. He got a house. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. He was on Long Island. So we couldn't do it consistently. But the idea was a Giants cooking show where he's a professional chef. And what we were planning to do was every week that the Giants played a team, he was going to make a dish of the team that they played. So say they played the Saints, he'd make jambalaya. He'd make Philly cheesesteaks. That was the plan, and then we would talk football. But so that was my initial plan. That only went on for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then it became a solo channel where I just talked about sports myself. But my first content where I was really talking from just by myself and wasn't focusing on that plan was the Knicks, actually, because the draft was over. It was kind of the dead time. It was like May or June. The Knicks did their draft. And and then I kind of hit the ground running with Giants content probably like 2 or 3 weeks before the start of the regular season. And I quickly realized people enjoyed me talking about the football team, and I took it a lot more seriously. But I say it to everybody all the time. I think what you should do when they ask me for advice, do it for fun, man. That's why I still do it for fun. I did it for fun when I first started. I didn't have any plan to try to make it like a full-time or a semi-full-time thing, talking about the team I love. And I think people realize that and they see that. And I think it comes across like I'm a real guy, like it's organic, like I'm not fake. And I think that's probably as big of a reason as any why my channel's been as successful as it's been.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me a little bit of backstory on you a little bit. I don't want to date you or age you. But growing up, what's your first memory or recollection as a Giants fan? What do you recall as a child and the Giants, or when did that journey start for you?
Um, yeah, I was more of a broad football fan, to be honest with you, when I was like very young. Like I didn't really have a team when I was like 6, 7, and the Giants were so bad. So that was probably part of it when I was
Sure.
growing up as a kid. Like the 49ers, the Cowboys, we all remember that. But I was always a Giants fan, but I wouldn't consider myself a diehard until probably like 12, which I think is like a pretty fair age where people start to like really identify themselves as fans. At least for me, that was when I became a Met fan around then. I was a Knicks fan earlier. They were kind of the first team I fell in love with when I was maybe 8 or 9. But I would say around 12 years old. And for me, the first player I fell in love with was Tiki Barber. And I named my dog Tiki. He
Oh,
was
nice.
drafted, I think, in 97. I was born in 85. So I was 12 at the time. I loved him from the first time that we drafted him. I think I fell in love with his name and obviously his play on the field. And yeah, I think he was, I always credit him as much as I hate what he did on the way out to Eli and Coughlin. I always credit him for, being a big, big reason why I became as big of a diehard Giants fan as I was. So I would say, yeah, that team in general. Then, of course, the 2000 Super Bowl team. We didn't win, obviously. We made the Super Bowl. That still is right up there with the teams that won the Super Bowls for me. That team was fun. It was magical. The guarantee by Fossil. It was such a likable team. So like that era of Giants football, like 97, 98, 99, 2000, that's when I really became like a diehard Giants fan.
Okay, so you and I are the same age. I was also born in '85.
Okay.
What's it like being a Knicks fan and a Mets fan? Because at least the Giants have given you something to kind of remember in a great fashion, where the other two have given you mostly grief, if nothing else. What's that like in your sports world for yourself as a fan, right? Because I mean, I'm from Jersey, right? So I grew up a New Jersey Nets fan because we had a team before they left to Brooklyn. So I grew up hating the Knicks. Don't care about the Knicks at
Well,
all.
you should if you're a Nets fan. Yeah.
Yeah, why would I, right? And after they
Yeah.
leave, I'm not going to start rocking with the team. They're gone. I just don't have a team at this point. That sucks. I grew up a Yankees fan, obviously, because I grew up in Jersey City, and I grew up in North Jersey. So I grew up in Jersey City, and my first influence in baseball was actually a teacher of mine in like fourth grade. Big Yankee guy got me into it. Um, so did that whole thing. Obviously, can't keep up with baseball now. And I would say football I got into probably around 6 and 7, probably around that age. And like I said, diehard probably much closer to like 9-ish, 10-ish.
Yeah.
But before it was
Probably
all
around the same for me. A little older,
yeah.
11,
But
12-ish. Yeah.
before my first thing was basketball. Basketball was the first sport I picked up. It's the first one I watched. So I mean, obviously, the Nets were terrible in the early '90s as well. So grew up a Jordan fan like anybody else, right? You watch the greatness and you get to see what it is. But for you, what was that sports journey like for you? Because again, the Knicks still haven't given you squat at this point.
Yeah.
And at least the Mets have made a couple runs that haven't come to fruition, but at least they made a few runs.
I mean, the Knicks team in when I was 8 years old, the 93, 94 Knicks,
Yeah,
that's what made me like really into sports, to be honest with you, as like a very young kid. I friggin' fell in love with those teams. And we have not had teams like that since. But that's
sure,
why I said I fell in love with the Knicks the first, because I mean, those are the greatest Knicks teams arguably ever, other than of course the teams that won the championships in the 70s, but certainly the greatest Knicks team since I've been alive. And I think I love them so much because they represented New York. They were tough. They were gritty. And so that was really the first team I fell in love with. But yeah, my journey as a Knicks fan throughout my life, it's been horrible. I mean, since 2000, where we had that magical run as the 8 seed, we got to the finals and we lost to the Spurs. From then on, I mean, it's been abysmal. We had that one nice year with Melo where we won 54 games. We got ousted in the second round. But other than that, really nothing to speak of until recently. And now we get Jalen Brunson. He's like much like when I was a kid, growing up watching the Knicks, 7, 8, 9 years old, those lunch pail guys. That's what Jalen Brunson is to me. And I think that's why Knicks fans love him as much as they do. So I'm really encouraged. I'm really excited about this Knicks team now. I definitely think they're building something. Of course, they need a few more pieces, but they're in a really good place now. But throughout the court, I mean, that's how you know I'm a diehard fan, to be able to stick with that team, to be able to stick with the Mets. I say it all the time, and maybe this is controversial to people that are Yankees fans. And I'm not bashing Yankees fans or any other New York fans. Met fans, to me, you have to be the biggest, not just in New York, in all of sports. Met fans are the most loyal, passionate fans in all of sports. The reason I say that, they share a city with the New York Yankees. And they got to hear about the 27 championships over and over and over and over, and all the heartbreaking moments. I could go down the list as a Mets fan, crying my eyes out in 1999 when Kenny Rogers walks in the run in Game 6 of the NLCS against the Atlanta Braves. So many others. But, yeah, for me, man, I take pride in rooting for teams like the Mets and the Knicks because, for me, that shows you're loyal. You're passionate. You don't jump off the bandwagon. You don't take the easy way out. Like a lot of Knicks fans did when Brooklyn got Kevin Durant. All of a sudden, you see all these young Knicks fans going over to the Brooklyn Nets. Same thing with the Yankees, right? When you're a Mets fan, you go over to the Yankees. So I take pride, even though they've been lovable losers. I take pride in rooting for those teams, much like the Giants in recent years.
Yeah, that's a sports code, and it's funny you brought that up. I tweeted that earlier. There was some tweet about, what's a sports code you live by, and I was like, there's no such thing as your second favorite team. That's not a real thing.
No.
You have one team, and then there's everybody else, and you can say, you enjoy watching them, or you like players on them, which we all do. That's fine. But people who make statements like, "Oh, that's my second favorite team," I'm already out on you as a fan at this point.
Yeah, you can't have a second favorite team.
I am personally judging you at that point internally. Like, what do you mean? So, I know people who are like Yankees fans or Mets fans, but they don't have any beef or rivalry. So at the end of the day, they're still rooting for the other team from a New York standpoint or a fan standpoint. And I'm fine with that. But I've never heard a Mets fan go, "Oh, the Yankees are my second favorite team," or a Yankees fan say that. That kind of stuff is kind of blasphemous for me too in a sports world. So you're right. I mean, I give it up to Mets fans. I give it up to Jets fans. I give it up to all those small market team fans in any sport that just kind of stick with their fandom regardless of what ownership's going to do. So from that standpoint, I mean, kudos to you. And again, the Giants had a lot of rough runs, and at least we got to see a little bit of a good thing. So Becca's in the house. I want to say what's up to Becca, also a great supporter. The other Chris, because we got Chris here. I think he brought up 99. I think you addressed 99 even when he brought it up. So I'm assuming.
He's talking about the Knicks. I got to meet Chris, by the way. He's awesome. I met him at a Giants
game. He has mentioned, so I'm guessing that's what he was talking about. CP Sports is in the house, saying hello to Darius, but he's here.
What's going on?
Becca, shouting out my beard. I appreciate you. I'm still working on it. I'm only on month 2 right now. I want to see what's going to be like in 6 months. I'm trying to get the whole thing going. I don't know yet.
I've never grown a beard. I've grown out a very thick, like 5 o'clock shadow, probably not shaved for about 2.5 to 3 weeks, but I've never grown out a full beard. Never done it.
You know what? I started growing out my beard randomly, and then we all went to Italy for vacation. My wife's not a big fan of beards, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna trim the sucker because it's vacation, it's nice.
Right.
And then I woke up the next day, and both of my kids were like, "What did you do to your face?" I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Why'd you trim your beard?" I was like, "Because we're going on vacation." So then they started making fun of me, and I was like, all right, when we come back, I'm going to regrow my beard. So I started after Memorial Day, so I'm a little bit just over 2 months of just straight growing. So we'll see how it goes. But I appreciate you, Becca. I'm working on it. But back to you now, all right? So you have your moments. You said you grew up in Long Island. Are you still in Long Island?
Yeah. Well, I lived in Brooklyn for a bit, back on Long Island now. Yeah, I've lived mainly on Long Island for the majority of my life, with a little bit in Brooklyn.
Okay. Do you miss Brooklyn? Did you enjoy your time?
Yeah, I love Brooklyn. Matter of fact, I might end up moving back to Brooklyn. My job now is in Queens, so Jamaica. So it's kind of, it would be probably more beneficial for me in a year. That's probably what I'm thinking. I'm going to move back out to the city area, which for me, a guy my age, 37, I'm still single. I feel like that's a better area to be as an older single person. So I spend a lot of my time there anyway. So I would like to probably move back out there as soon as, probably after this football season. That's probably the goal.
You just want to be closer to Nets fans, right? So you could be closer to the Brooklyn Nets fans. So you can walk around with the Knicks jersey on, right? You got to represent while you're out there.
I lived in Brooklyn for 3 or 4 years. I could count on one hand how many Brooklyn Nets hats I saw while I lived there.
I believe this.
Now, once Durant got there, things changed. But before that,
Becca says, "Let's get you on The Bachelor." I mean, why not? Why not? I'm down with what Becca's saying. Like, I'm absolutely there. All right, so you've been making your YouTube content, I would say, since you said Barkley was drafted at 18, right? So you're probably on you're going hand in hand with Saquon, right? So he's in year X and you're in year X.
Everybody says they feel bad for Saquon. You should feel bad for me. I've had to endure this too.
And that's what I'm coming up with. So you've been doing this for now. It's 18, 6 years? This is year 6.
This is going to be the 6th season, yeah.
Yeah, so now you're on year 6. Out of that year 6, you've had one good year of content creation where you could probably be happy and enjoy it because everything else has been straight utter garbage, right? If we're
Yeah.
just being honest, it's
The
been bad.
Joe Judge year was the first year was lukewarm.
Sure,
It
and
was
that's
it
fair.
was it was pretty fun. It wasn't like last year, but it was pretty
Yeah,
fun.
sure,
Yeah.
because there were some overachievement things you could look towards, and they gave you hope and optimism. So
Yeah.
fair enough. But between the years you've started to last year, what was last year really like? That ride and journey's going. What are you thinking? Does it even feel real after again? And I'll say this: since the 2011 Super Bowl run, we've had one good year, and that was a one-off fluke in 16, and now
Yeah.
you had last year. So over a dozen years, you really had not much going on.
Last year, like I said, I've been watching the Giants religiously since like 97.
Sure,
Last year was in my top 4 seasons as a Giants fan because of how unexpected it was
sure,
and how much crap we've had to endure really since our last Super Bowl, like you just said, over the last 10 years, outside of that one-off, which was kind of a fluke, like you said, because we
sure.
spent so much in free agency. You knew it was going to be short-lived.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
feels
They
different.
bought a defense, and it just worked,
Yeah.
right? They bought the right players, it worked.
Yeah, for a short period of time. This just feels different because they're building from the ground up. You see what the coach was able to get out of them, and it was such an unexpected year. Coming off the year we had before, we didn't add anybody because we had no cap space. We get rid of Bradbury, so you go into the year, you're like Jones in a new scheme. You got to think going into the year, quarterback's going to struggle. You had no experience in terms of Brian Dable as a head coach. You went in optimistic, but after what Joe Judge did to you, you couldn't be over the hills excited about it. You needed some proof. So it was such an unexpected year as a Giants fan for them to do what they did rather. For me, I think it's '07. I think it might be my fifth because '08 was such a great year too. Burr shot himself and we had the horrible ending. '07, '08, '11, 2000, and last year. Those are my top 5 years as a Giants fan. That was such a fun year last year. It was so unexpected. And had they ever gotten to like the NFC title game, it might have been in my top 2 or 3 favorite years. That's how great of
Yeah.
a year it was. It came out of left field.
So from last season, remove the playoffs for a second. What is the memory that sticks out for you in this last season? What is the one moment, one reaction, one something while you're watching the season and game? It's probably might be a difficult question, but what is that one moment that click back and makes you go, "Yep, that's the one."
I mean, there were several moments I could point to, and it's funny. I should have clipped it during the live stream. I do the games with Bad Dog every week, and during the live stream, first game of the year, it's the beginning of the fourth quarter, literally just started, and I'm looking at the scoreboard, and I'm thinking in my head, Giants are down 7, they're on the road. I say it at the very beginning of the fourth quarter, and anybody that's in my live stream that's here could attest to it. I turn to Bad Dog and I go, if they score a touchdown with about 2 minutes left or less, do you go for 2? And Bad Dog's like, I'm not sure. I said, I think they should because you're on the road. It's a game where you're not expected to win to begin with. You're trying to set the tone as a head coach. You're trying to change the culture, right? Joe Judge was always very passive. And sure enough, the situation happens. There's like a minute left. They score the touchdown. And I turned to Bad Dog. I said, they're going to go for 2. And everybody in the chat's like, no way. You can't do that. Sure enough, Dable brings them out there. They go for 2 and they score. And to me, even though it was in the first game of the year, that to me was the turning point of the season because Dable just said to his players, I believe in you. For the first time in years, these Giants players felt like they had a guy that believed in them. He put the game in their hands. And I think that just set the tone for the whole season. Was there some other great wins? Of course. The win against the Ravens coming back from London on short rest, beating Lamar Jackson, beating Aaron Rodgers in London, of course. The playoff win against Minnesota, the Sunday night game with the strip sack by Kayvon Thibodeau, the Colts game where Daniel Jones was incredible, and we go into the playoffs. I was at that game, the standing ovation. But for me, if you're asking me for a turning point, as crazy as it sounds, it was week 1. It was the 2-point conversion by Brian Dable.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. A lot of people point to that just because it was such an anomaly for this organization. Even the coaches they've had, I wouldn't, even if I go back in time, I don't see Tom Coughlin doing that, right?
Yeah,
It wouldn't
probably
be
not.
his,
No,
it wouldn't
probably
be
not.
his strategy. And Hall of Famer, right? And he's not doing that. So it was very, very like, we don't do things like this. So the organization to me with this new regime is doing things that we're not used to. It's not the giant way, if you will. And that's not a bad thing, because clearly the giant way wasn't working anyway, if we're being honest. So, I mean, even, when's the last time somebody like, I'm not even going to bring up Gettleman, like Reese, or maybe even Reese did. When's the last time a GM made a move like the move for Waller? Even off of, injury. When's the last time this team made a move?
Gettleman definitely made some crazy trades, but
Yeah.
but they didn't work for the most part. Well, the
right,
Beckham trade worked. We got Dexter Lawrence, but a lot of the other trades did not. Yeah.
Now Dexter Lawrence doesn't work until Wink Martindale comes in. So I talk about Dexter a lot. Let me get your opinion on here. A lot of people say, oh well, Dave Gettleman did look. He was a good enough scout to identify talent. Fine, he can identify talent, but he's also responsible for the coaches. You're also responsible for bringing people in to help mold and build that talent. And for the first 4 years of Dexter Lawrence's career, he was meh. And the reason he was meh is because they kept splitting him out at the end. They kept trying to rotate him and Leo. He wasn't in the right position. Wink comes in year one, says, all right, here's how you dominate, and now he's an all-pro. That's not coincidental. So this is why I'm kind of iffy on, high-fiving the Dave Gettleman on the
No, I think I'm the guy that believes in giving somebody credit where it's due. Sure. But Dave Gettleman proved to be what he was. Dave Gettleman was always a great scout. Very good scout. That's why he became a general manager with the Carolina Panthers. That's why he was in strong consideration to become the general manager instead of Jerry Reese when Ernie Accorsi stepped down. He was a great scout. He drafted well for the Giants. He did overall. I mean, you got a cornerstone left tackle. You got what we think is going to be the quarterback. You got what you Dexter Lawrence. He's clearly shown to have talent, right? So he hit on that pick. The Darius Slayton pick, great pick in the 5th round. The Love pick, great pick in the 4th round, whatever it was. So he had some good picks. He had some good drafts. Azeez Ojulari, Xavier McKinney, right? So in that aspect, he was, I think, at least slightly above average. But in terms of being an overall general manager, he was awful because there's other things that go into it. Cap management, free agent acquisitions, and like you said, the coaching staff. I mean, come on, like Pat Shurmur and obviously Joe Judge. And who knows how much say he had. Mara may have had a lot to say to do with it. But regardless, as a general manager, Dave was bad. As a talent evaluator, he was pretty good. And that's what he was. That's why he got a general manager job to begin with. It's kind of when you see, and Pat Shurmur, for example, perfect example to compare it to Dave Gettleman. Pat Shurmur was a great offensive coordinator. Great. Look at what he did with the Eagles. All these quarterbacks that had career years under him while he was an OC. Nick Foles had like a one. Sam Bradford had his career year. I think Nick Foles had a career year with the Vikings the year before. With Case Keenum had a great year with Pat Shurmur, which is why he got the job to begin with. So he was known as like a quarterback whisperer. But when he got the added responsibility of being a head coach and he had to do more things than just focus on the quarterback and the offense, he failed miserably. It's the same thing with Gettleman. Gettleman was a good talent evaluator, a good scout, but when you have to do everything, he's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. So we've got some questions in the comments, and I obviously want people included because, again, they're here to get to know you, and that's really the premise of this. So Darius wants to know, are you a hockey or soccer fan at all?
I wouldn't call myself a fan. No, fan stands for fanatic. I do enjoy it. I'll watch the World Cup for sure. And I watched it a lot this year. I do like the World Cup, but no, I wouldn't consider myself a fan. Same thing with hockey. I'll watch the playoffs a bit. If the Rangers or Islanders are in, I know that's sacrilegious if you're a fan of either or. I don't really consider myself a fan. I root for the team that's in it from New York. I'll watch all of their games. And I'll say this, playoff hockey is incredible. I just am such a big basketball fan, and they kind of coincide with one another. I never dedicated enough time to hockey growing up. So I like hockey for sure. It's a distant fourth for me out of the 4 major sports. As a matter of fact, this is crazy. I actually really like watching tennis. I'd probably have tennis above hockey. That's probably my 4th favorite sport.
Favorite tennis player of all time?
Ooh, wow, that's a good one. I think the best of all time has to be Djokovic because I mean the guy's won 24 majors now. My favorite though, Nadal. Like, how do you not love Nadal? I love Nadal. So I think he's my favorite, but I think the best is Djokovic. What's crazy is the 3 greatest tennis players of all time all played in the same era. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. It's insane.
That's true. And the Williams sisters. Don't forget them. They're in that conversation too.
I was thinking male, but of course, Serena, Venus, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Chris wants to know, what Giants player do you think will be a good Star Wars Jedi?
Wow. I'd have to think about that one. I will go. I'll go Jalen Hyatt. I'll go Jalen Hyatt because his speed just looks otherworldly. So I'll go with Jalen Hyatt.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Tommy's in the house. I always want to shout out Tommy. Appreciate your support. If there's anybody else who haven't, my man Real Cold is here. Love Steve right here. I give Gettleman credit for retiring. We all do appreciate he's going.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's shedding a tear that he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
I'll give him credit for giving some cornerstone pieces to Shane. I'm happy he did that, but overall, bad job.
Yeah, shout out to Mark Thompson as well. Appreciate him being on. Just want to make sure everybody gets to ask their questions, gets to know Chris a little bit. So last season you enjoyed the ride. Tell me about that playoff game because that was an exciting playoff game, high scoring, back and forth, big moments, big plays.
Yeah.
What was that roller coaster like, and how did you feel about the second game after watching that first game where you lost on like the 99-yard field goal?
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about last year's playoffs?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, listen, the Vikings game to me, I already knew Jones was coming back before that game. In my heart of hearts, I'm like, he's coming back, knowing that the situation we're going to be in. But once they won that Vikings game, that was like the cherry on top. It's like, it's over. He's going to be the quarterback here for the next few years. And yeah, I was so happy for Daniel Jones. I was so happy for Saquon Barkley. And you go back and you think about that game, I was so nervous because Minnesota goes right down the field and they score. You're on the road. Think about this. You're on the road. This is Daniel Jones' first playoff game. Saquon Barkley's first. Most of the players on this team first. Leonard Williams, for God's sakes, one of our oldest players' first playoff game. So they had never even been in this type of situation. On the road, you're down 7 to start. One of the loudest stadiums, indoor facility. First play, holding penalty. 1st and 20 on your own 10 or 15. Daniel Jones goes right down the field. I was like, come on. So it was such a clutch. But obviously everybody just looks at the stats. But when you factor in that situation where he was to start that game in your first playoff game, you showed a lot of balls right there, man. And then obviously he had an historical game statistically. And I think a lot of people kind of didn't give him enough credit for that because of what happened the next week. But, you think about what Eli did in his first playoff game. He didn't get the ball above the 50-yard line against the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, John Fox had a lot of knowledge about the Giants, so that may have had something to do with it. And then in his second playoff game, he struggled against the Eagles as well before he went on his run in 2007. So, yeah, I was super pumped up. Definitely one of my 5 or 6, definitely my top 10 favorite Giants games of all time. Winning a playoff game on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. So, yeah, I felt great. And then the next week, obviously, in the here and now while you're watching it, you're devastated. You're down like 28-0 before you blink. You're getting completely dismantled. And it was a game where you felt like the Giants were like a featherweight going up against the super heavyweight. Well, you watch the game. All you had to do was watch the line of scrimmage. Every play, we were getting demolished on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Dexter Lawrence couldn't do anything against their offensive line. Our offensive line couldn't pass protect the entire game, and we got demolished. So you left that game as happy as you were the week before. You left that game being like you kind of, at least me, and in the moment, it's emotional. You're a fan. You're starting to convince yourself maybe we're not that far away from being a team that could compete and contend to potentially go to a Super Bowl, even though in the back of your head, you're trying to think realistically because you still know there's a lot of growing to do. Sure. And that was just like a slap back to reality. You watch that game and you're like, the Eagles are literally better than us everywhere on the field. And it was just a slap back to reality. But after like 2 or 3 days, you let it sink in and you're like, what a great year. What a great year. And it was just a mismatch. And it is what it is. We need to build. I think we're a year or two away from being on that type of level if Shane continues to draft well. But it was such a fun season, man. It was such a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even Dayball said what you did. I think when they asked him about Coach of the Year or whatever it was, or going to the playoffs, his first reaction, it was like, all that to get smoked. So that was also on his mind. So I hope that stays on his mind and he plays that game a little bit with chip on the shoulder. So Mark, and you answered this for me. I think we're already in the back, so you might have to reiterate a little bit, but it's a good question that Mark noticed. So Mark wants to know, I noticed that the Entertainah has cut back his content. Any particular reason for that?
Yeah, I've been asked that a bunch. I told Zain before we went live. To me, if I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to talk about the Giants, it's because I'm going to love doing it. I'm going to enjoy doing it. I never want to be a content creator that's coming on here because they have to, because it's the only way they can make an income, or they have to force content. And I felt myself starting not to enjoy the content I was putting out, because I felt like I was overdoing it. I felt like I was forcing content. And I felt like I was just going live to go live at times. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, I want to enjoy this. And I know if I do, I'll produce better content. I'll scale back a bit, but when I talk, there'll be something worth talking about. So I went out there, I got a full-time job. And yeah, now obviously during football season, I'm gonna be incredibly active. I'm gonna be probably live 3 days a week. Tons of videos. We'll be live for all the Giants games. But I just got to a point where I wasn't enjoying having to force content 12 months a year. Because to me, it's not really appropriate to talk about the Giants 12 months a year. There's a lot of dead time after the season. You got to, you get your free agency, you get your draft. But after the draft, what are you talking about other than hot takes and, stupid content? And for a guy, I complain all the time when I go on Twitter and I watch these, whether it be a YouTuber, whether it be somebody on Twitter, whether it be a writer, where they make clickbait content. I got to practice what I preach. If I complain about that, I can't put it out. So I just got to that point where I'm like, I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm not producing quality content anymore. It's more quantity, and I never want to do that.
Sure, and that's fair. Like you said, I think that's the main thing, that if you're not enjoying it and you're not doing it for yourself, and like I said, it's different when you've already started to monetize, and then you have to, kind of oblige to that aspect of it for that aspect. But aside from that, it's good to just, like you said, if you don't enjoy it, then why are you even doing it?
No,
So,
Mark, losing had nothing to do with it. I see could lose. They lost every year I was on YouTube. They lost in 2018. They won 4 games.
yeah,
2019, like they were horrible every year. I will say the last year with Judge definitely took a lot out of me, because you got a lot of like combative fans in my live streams. Like people would be like almost blaming me for the team's performance. So that I would say that had a minor effect, but definitely not the primary reason.
misdirected anger is always good in life. So
Yeah,
that's always good for
yeah,
people who just
yeah,
want to chime in and just be mad to be mad.
yeah.
So last year, a little bit of revelation. What's your worry or concern for this coaching staff in year 2?
That's a good question. My worry or concern for the coaching staff?
And it could be any
I have
coach. It
so
could
much
be
faith. I have
it
so
could
much
be
faith.
J-Ball, it could be Wink, it could be Kafka, it could be
Yeah.
Fake Tierney, right? It could be overall or specific individual if you so choose it to be.
I think I still have a slight worry on the defensive side of the ball, even though I do think the defense is going to be good this year. But I do have a slight worry on the defensive side of the ball with Wink's defensive philosophy, because we know what Wink's going to do. Wink's going to wink. Wink's going to be aggressive, and I love that. I love a defensive coordinator that's going to come after you. But when you look at our schedule this year, we're playing literally, like you name the top 20 receivers in the NFL, we probably play 19 of them. Like we play Tyreek Hill, we play Jalen Waddle, we play Terry McLaurin, we play CeeDee Lamb, we play the Eagles, obviously with their receivers. You play Devontae Adams. Like we play the best wide receivers in the NFL every week. So if you're going to be as aggressive as Wink is with inexperienced corners, I could see us giving up a lot more big plays this year. So I worry about that. I'll say that, man, because we definitely, and I'm excited about our corners. I posted about it today on Twitter. You've got 3 really young corners: Cordell Flott, obviously the Hawkins, who's looked great so far, and Deontay Banks, who I absolutely love. I wanted him so bad in the draft when I saw what he looked like at his combine and his physical attributes and everything else. But you look at those 3 corners, they're all like 21, 22 years old. They're all over 6 foot. They all run a sub 4.40. So the potential is so exciting with that group, but they're inexperienced, and you're going up against the best wide receivers in football. And if you're going to run a defense like Wink does, and we know he's going to, and you put the pedal to the metal, you better be able to trust those guys. So I could definitely see some growing pains this year in our secondary if that pass rush doesn't get home very quickly.
Fair enough. So Darius brought this up on the comments, and he's talking about Hawkins, and Hawkins has been flashing a lot. 6th-round pick out of ODU. And then I saw another tweet about someone clipping a quote from Jordan Renan from last year, saying similar to, if not the same things, about Rodarius Williams, who was getting cooked the moment the season started. And what do you do with that? And where are you in those kind of scenarios now, where you have the takes from media, analysts, coaches versus actual translation into an opponent and playing that? Where are you on the Hawkins hype? I would say more or less based off the same fact that last year the Rodarius Williams hype was really high and nothing came to fruition there.
I think I'm not going to fully buy into Hawkins. It's practice at the end of the day. They just put the pads on. But what I'll say is this. I think Hawkins is – I never bought into Rodarius Williams. I at all, to be honest with you. He was 25 years old when we drafted him. I was thinking maybe he could be a nice depth corner, but I never viewed him as a guy that was going to end up being a long-term starter for this team. Hawkins – his upside is much higher than Rodarius Williams for me, just based off of his physical attributes. The guy's 6'2". He's got 32.5-inch arms, which is what you're like. Ideally, you want a corner with arms longer than 32 inches. That's what they say, because you could play press man. Seattle used to only draft corners when they had the Legion of Boom with corners who had arms that long. So he's got all the measurables. 6'2", really long arms. He's really fast. And I think the Giants saw that. That's why they took a flyer on him, even though I think he went to Old Dominion.
Yeah, he went to OD.
So I do think there's a little bit more reason for an excitement for a young player like that, as opposed to a guy like a Rodarius Williams, for example. But am I completely sold that Hawkins is going to be a long-term starter for this team? Of course not. He's never played a game in the NFL. But he's got tools. And I'll say this, with the coaching we have, and if you could find players with raw tools like that, more often than not, I think if you have a really good coaching staff, they're going to find ways to at least make them solid pros. So I think there's at least a 50-50 shot that Hawkins could be a starter for this team long term. Will he be a great starter? I don't know. I mean, he's a 6th-round pick. But so far, you got to be encouraged with what you've seen. But it's still training camp, so I don't want to overdo it like a lot of fans are doing.
Sure, and same. I saw a clip of him on today, and he made a great play with a very obvious hold. And I was like, well, that's going to get called every single time.
I've seen a couple of holds on these plays that everybody's seeming to ignore. Yeah, there's been a couple.
Everyone is ignoring that. I don't want to be the, get off my lawn old man on this. But, when we get super excited about that, just know they're going to call that on him every single time. So I'm with you. Hope for the best, but I'm not,
listen, I think the people that are starting to, and I get it, and Bobby's great. And Bobby and Justin are great, but I think Bobby's a big reason why there's been this piling on for Hawkins, because he's been talking him up so much, and obviously he's huge, both on Twitter, YouTube, podcast, whatever. Sure. And he's been such a big fan of him, and I think that's part of it, why fans, at least on Twitter and YouTube, are really falling in love with him, because they're like, if he loves him, there must be a little bit of legitimacy to this. And now people, are comparing him to Deonte Banks, and then they're bashing Banks. And I'm like, Banks is going up against the first teamers. He's going up against the number one wide receivers. They're putting him on Darren Waller in some of these clips where he's getting exposed. It's trial by fire. I don't like that fans are trying, kind of bashing Banks. Same thing. They're bashing Banks before he even takes the field. He's a rookie playing one of the 2 or 3 hardest positions to transfer to in the NFL. So I have not lost any faith in Banks long term. I still think he's going to be a really good pro, and I'm with you on Hawkins. I think there's potential, for sure, but I need to see a lot more evidence before I'm like, yeah, this guy. I know this guy could be a starting cornerback for this team for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 6th-round pick. Usually, the later round picks, you're betting on certain attributes, certain potential, certain aspects that translate, and you go right into athleticism, right? Like you said, 6'2", 190, elite speed, long arm. So you're really betting on those attributes to get coached up to produce at the next level. Because, again, still a 6th-round pick. But hoping for the best, like I said, maybe helps on specials early on. And then next year, we don't know what's going to happen with Adoree'. So, I mean, that whole cornerback room is going to need more additions to it anyway. So you've brought up Banks a few times. Tell me about the draft. What was your expectation going in?
Yeah.
How did you feel about the picks? What was your initial reaction at the end? And then when you let it marinate, how'd you feel about it?
During the draft, I was ecstatic. When I let it marinate, I was ecstatic. I love the draft. Now, to be fair, as fans, we're usually going to love the draft. Let's be honest. It's kind of like I often compare the draft to like a presidential election. If the guy that you want to win gets elected, you're ecstatic. And then you say he's a great president for the first 2 or 1 or 2 years if you love him, but you can't really judge a president for at least 3 or 4 years after he's out of office. It's the same thing with a draft or a draft pick. Like, you could be ecstatic in the first 2 years, you're in love with the guy, but you can't really judge a player that you draft for at least 4 years, 5 years. And we've seen evidence of that with Andrew Thomas, with Dexter Lawrence, with Daniel Jones. Like, different players develop at different rates, depending on the circumstance that they're in. So you're not going to be able to really judge this draft class for at least another 3 years, at least. But in terms of what we got, what I was hoping to get, I posted the night before the draft started. I want Deonte Banks. They took him. So how could I say I don't love the pick? After we took Banks, I posted the day of day 2 before a pick was made by any team. I want John Michael Schmitz. They took John Michael Schmitz. And I never thought in a million years we would get Jalen Hyatt. So I absolutely love that pick. And then day 2, I posted 3 names before day 2 started, and Eric Gray was one of them that I wanted with the next pick. And we took Eric Gray. So I love the draft. How could I not? They're the exact guys that I wanted. So, and I did like the Hawkins pick. I didn't know anything about him, but when I found out, his measurables and his upside, I'm like, for a 6th-round pick, yeah, let's go. So, yeah, I loved the draft. I loved everything that Joe Schoen did. He filled a lot of needs, but most importantly, he met value with need. Deonte Banks was a guy that most people had penciled in late teens, very early 20s. You get him at 24 after the trade up. So good value there. John Michael Schmitz, a lot of people thought very late first, very early second. You get him late second. And, of course, Jalen Hyatt, who most people thought was going to be early to mid-second round pick. You trade up and you get him in the early 3rd. And if you go back and watch the YouTube video, Joe Schoen and Dable were debating whether or not they should take Hyatt or John Michael Schmitz with the 2nd round pick. They were like neck and neck. So to be able to get both those guys, how could you not be ecstatic as a Giants fan after that draft?
Who was your favorite pick? I'm going to go with Banks just because I think it's that, but it could be someone else. But who was your favorite pick of this draft?
My favorite pick was John Michael Schmitz.
Okay.
I knew we needed to take a corner. Like, I was blocking out all the wide receiver guys because, one, it wasn't like a super heavy top end wide receiver class. It wasn't the Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase. It wasn't that class. It wasn't even the CeeDee Lamb class. It was not that. You had some good, and who knows, these guys may turn out to be great. But the thought going in were there was no elite prospects in this draft. And I looked at our roster long term, and I look at the defense that we run. If Wink's going to be here for the next 3 or 4 years, which I think he's going to, I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job anytime soon because of his age. And obviously the trend in the NFL is to go young and go more with an offensive mind more often than not for a head coach. So I think Wink's going to be here for the next 3 or 4 years. So if you're going to have Wink as your defensive coordinator, you better be able to cover. And I look at our secondary, and it was a strong class for the cornerback position to begin with. And I'm like, they got to go corner. They got to go corner in the 1st round because I think Adoree Jackson's gone after this year. I'd be shocked if he's back because he's going to be a free agent. We have McKinney, potentially Barkley. Like, I don't see us investing a lot into Adoree Jackson after this year, especially with his injury history. So I knew we're going to draft the corner this year, and good chance we draft the corner next year. I wouldn't be shocked if we take another corner next year early. So I love going corner early, but I'm an offensive line guy. I've always been an offensive line guy. I live, breathe, eat, sleep, offensive line. And the New York Giants have not had a center play back-to-back seasons since Weston Richburg. And before that, it was O'Hara, like all the way back to the 08-09 line. Like, so it's been forever. It's been a revolving door. So to be able to get a guy who most felt was the best, maybe not the highest upside of any of the centers in this draft, but the safest and the best going in center in this draft class, I mean, I'm in love with that. So that was actually my favorite pick.
Who's the most underrated pick in this draft class?
I mean, it's looking like Hawkins, but it's way too early. I still like Eric Gray. And I think a lot of people overlook the running back position. I get it. And Schoen is definitely trending towards wanting to build a running back by committee, which I completely agree with. I think that's the proper. I was fully on board with giving Saquon like a 2-year commitment. That's what I wanted. I felt like it was kind of an in-the-middle move where you showed some appreciation towards him, but you didn't give him too much. You gave him like 22, 23 million guaranteed. That's what I was hoping happened, where they kind of met in the middle. But long-term, I definitely agree with the approach. You don't invest a lot of money into the running back position. You want to build up your offensive line. You want to be able to manufacture a ground game. But Eric Gray to me, when I watched him before the draft, and it's why I wanted him on day 2, Day 3 rather. When I saw that he was still available, he reminds me so much of Ahmad Bradshaw. Like he runs so hard between the tackles. He's kind of elusive. He's not super fast. Like he doesn't have that breakaway speed, kind of like Bradshaw. But he's slithery through the tackles. He runs hard and he's really good as a pass catcher. So I like that Eric Gray pick. I love that Eric Gray pick when we made it. So obviously you haven't heard much about him because you're not going to hear much about running backs in training camp. Like, you know, so, we'll see how he does in his first preseason game. But I'm excited. I'm excited about this running back by committee we may have this year. I think they're going to scale back Barkley just a little bit. And I think Gray will get some touches. I think Breida will get some touches. So, yeah, I like that Gray pick. I definitely think he could be a pretty big contributor for the Giants for the next 4 or 5 years.
I'm not fully sure Breida even makes the roster. But
interesting. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah.
I only say this because Gray is already RB2, sorry, in my opinion. The moment he was drafted, he was RB2 as far as I'm concerned, and I'm with you. He was my favorite underrated pick. Very, very, very versatile. So you got him, you got Barkley. Then you're kind of split on Breida and Brightwell because one gives you special teams and one doesn't, and which one's it going to be? Because you're not carrying 4 or 5 running backs.
Yeah.
So who's the odd man out type scenario? Unless Brightwell gets carried strictly for special teams and Breida's the third guy. I don't know. So
I'm leaning they're gonna go. I'm leaning they're gonna go with 4, and they both. Yeah, that's what I'm leaning, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm very curious how they're gonna construct this 53. So you get Hawkins, who's a late round pick. You get Jordan Riley, which most people didn't even know about or hear about. Big, massive DT. You're betting on these late round picks. Now let's talk a little bit about free agency. Okereke, huge fan. I wanted him to get drafted by the Giants at that time because I thought he was going to be a 3-down sideline to sideline stud. Which I mean, he did great for the Colts. I'm happy to have him now. What was the move for you in free agency that was your best move?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go over a couple of the moves, but to start with Okereke, I love that move, and I think one thing that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Okereke, and I agree with you, he's definitely athletic, and it's such a deprived position for us. We had no talent there over the last 4 or 5 years. Really, our last consistent middle linebacker that was good was Pierce for like a 3 or 4 years stretch. But the thing that I think goes overlooked, and even when I talk about him a lot, I don't mention it. He's really intelligent. Like you talk to Colts fans, he went to Stanford. He has one of the highest IQs in the NFL. And when I talk to Colt fans, they say he's always in the right spot. And it just feels like a player, the type of player they'd want: smart, tough, dependable. So it just feels like a Dable and Shane type player. And I think that's why they targeted him. And they gave him a bit more than some Giants fans thought they would when you look at what some of the other linebackers got, because they obviously they valued him very highly. But I was thrilled to get him because we had the worst linebacking core in football last year. So, and he's still young. He's a guy that you could see being here for at least the next 3 or 4 years and being a big time contributor at that spot. So that might be my favorite move. I mean, how are you not excited about Waller? Like, we needed a weapon. He's a guy that could, really open up this offense. Last year he had 9 plays where he caught a ball for over 20 yards, and he only had 28 catches. So like 33% of his catches went for over 20 yards. Last year, the Giants as a whole only threw for a 20-yard gain in the regular season 27 times. And Waller only played 9 games. Had he played 17, he was on pace for 17 20-yard catches. So just adding him to this offense is definitely going to add more big plays. So you got to be excited about that. I think it takes more pressure off of Barkley. I think more pressure off everybody. It's going to help Darius Slayton on the outside. It's obviously Paris Campbell. I love that pickup as well. But if I got to pick one, I think I'm going Okereke, but I also don't want to sleep on the interior defensive line. The depth pickups I thought were really good too. A'Shawn Robinson, Nacho, a lot of good moves, a lot of savvy moves by Shane. But I'm with you. I thought that was our biggest weakness last year, and to be able to get a guy that's 25, who I think really fits what we're looking to do at that spot, I think the Bobby Okereke was such a massive need. That was my favorite pickup as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You got Saquon coming up again on free agency. It's going to happen. You got Xavier McKinney coming up, contract year. You got Leonard Williams coming up, contract year. You're the GM. What are you doing here? Who are you keeping? Who are you letting go? If you meet me in the middle here, I'm willing to. What are your parameters for those potential 3 names? I'm sure there's others, but for those 3 that stick out to me,
did you mention McKinney?
I did. So
okay.
Between Barkley, McKinney, and Leo.
And Adoree. And Adoree'.
And Adoree'. I'll even throw Adoree' in there.
Yeah.
Keeping, re-signing, letting go. What are you doing here?
All right. Obviously, this is going to depend on how they play this year.
Sure.
Like Barkley's got to stay healthy. He's got to play well all year. The only one I would tag out of him if I was going to use the tag would be Barkley, because the safety tag is too high. The safety tag next year is projected to be like $18 million because of the increase in the safety market. It's like exploded. So you're not going to be able to tag McKinney. I'm letting Jackson go, as I said earlier. That was a big reason why I wanted to draft the corner this year, and I probably am open to drafting a corner next year as well. As much as I like Jackson, I think he's a good player. Injury prone. He's approaching getting closer to 30. And I think our money could be better spent elsewhere long term. So I'm letting Jackson go. Leo, I'm only bringing back if he's willing to come back on a discount. If he's willing to come back on a discount, I'd love to have him. Obviously, he loves playing with Dex, yada, yada, yada. But do I think that's going to happen? No. I think money's going to talk like it did the first time around when Leo got his contract. And kudos to him. Go get your money. The defensive tackle market has exploded. We saw Dalvin Tomlinson got $15 million a year. And he's a good player, but he's 30. That's what Leo's going to be next year, I think. So you got to figure Leo's going to want at least that. And if he stays healthy this year, and if I'm Shane, unless Leo's willing to take a pretty hefty discount, I'm letting him go too. Maybe I drafted a D tackle early in next year's draft, whatever it may be. So unfortunately, I think those two guys I'm going to let walk after this year. Barkley, if he stays completely healthy, I would keep. I would tag him for the $12 million. I would not give him an extension. I would give him a tag. I'd give him another year. That's what I would do if he stays healthy and he kind of duplicates what he did last year. McKinney's a dicey one for me. I think a lot of people love McKinney and they just think it's an automatic. Sign him. I don't think it's an automatic. He went out there and he picked up an agent that is notorious for trying to get massive contracts. You look at what safeties are getting paid. If McKinney has a very good year this year, he's going to command $20 million. That's what he's going to be asking for. That's what the top safeties are getting. He's going to want $20 million a year. So I don't know with him, if I'm being completely honest. It comes down to what he's demanding. Do I want to keep McKinney? Absolutely. I think he's a really good player. I think he's got to do the same thing I said with Barkley. For me to even consider him long-term, he's got to prove he can stay healthy all year this year, and he has to elevate himself as a player. Like, I think we've been talking about him a lot, rightfully so, because we see the potential for his first 3 years in the NFL. We need to see him reach that potential this year, kind of like Dex did this past year. McKinney has to have like a Pro Bowl type season, and then, I might bite the bullet. I might say, okay, let's give him that 4-year, $76 million contract. Let's lock him up. But he's got to have a big year for me to even consider that, because I do think safety's replaceable too in the draft, even though we don't have a lot of talent at that position. But the first two for sure. Dory's gone and Leo's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know they're going to tag Barkley again. I know that's going to happen, and they're going to work.
If he stays healthy.
Of course. And then work on something long term, but we'll see if that gets accomplished. I don't think we want the same drama again, or any disgruntlement on any part. So that's going to be the most interesting one on how he goes. Like you said, they're going to scale back Barkley, but in a good way. I think keeping him fresh and healthy is good. He killed it in that Minnesota game. So the more you take the pressure off those kind of things, the better it will be for us in the long term. So in that respect, you have all these different moving pieces. What are some of your expectations for the upcoming season? Where are you looking and saying, this is a disappointment versus I can take what happened?
What do you mean? My expectations for the team this year?
Yeah, for the upcoming season. What's your expectation of this was a disappointment? This was a good season?
Yeah. I think I know a lot of people are like kind of scaling back their expectations this year, and I understand it because last year was such a surprise. Most of us didn't think they'd make the playoffs. And they didn't play the hardest of schedules. But I do think their schedule was a little bit harder than people think. Like, we played the Jaguars, they were a playoff team. We played the Lions, they were a playoff team. We played the Seahawks, they were a playoff team. So not as hard as this year. Of course, when you play the Bills, you play the Niners, the Jets, they look good. Dolphins, they look pretty good. So we definitely play a more challenging schedule, or at least it appears that way. I always say, you can't really judge a schedule before the year starts. The NFL is such a week-to-week league. You don't know how these teams are going to look like when you play them, what the momentum is going to be like, who's hurt, who's not, right? So I don't want to read too much into the schedule before the year starts. So I get people that say this team could have a good year and win 7 or 8 games, and if they show improvement in other areas. For me, the most important thing for this team this year, you have to show growth within the division. That you start there. If we win 8 games, but we go 3-3 in the division, and we're really competitive with the Eagles, even if we get swept by the Eagles, but we're really competitive, kind of like we keep it as close as maybe we kept it against the Cowboys last year, where we lost by like 7 against the Eagles, and we at least split with the Cowboys. We sweep Washington. We look like we're growing in the trenches, because I think that's the most important aspect, especially from within this division. And you win 8 games, I think that's a productive year. My expectations, though, going into the season is playoffs. I regardless of what our schedule is, I don't think the NFC conference as a whole is very good. It's just not. And I just believe in Brian Daboll. I think a lot of people are shortchanging how important coaching is in the NFL. And you look at the best coaches in the league. Mike Tomlin, every year, Steelers win 9 games at least. Every year. Every freaking year. And there's certainly some years where they have a much more challenging schedule than others. Titans, before last year, every year, people thought the Titans are going to fall off. Vrabel, always 9-10 wins plus. Every year. When you have a really good coach, you're going to find a way to win 9 games. You just are, if you don't have like really bad luck with injuries. So I look at this team. I look on both sides of the ball. There's no reason to think there shouldn't be a big jump on both sides. They get more acclimated to both schemes. You add talent on both sides. You got to figure the younger players that you drafted last year, the Evan Neals and Kayvon Thibodeaux, are only going to get better. And I'm a believer in Daniel Jones this year. I'm not going to go as far to say that he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, but I think Daniel Jones is going to have a very, very nice season this year for the Giants. So I understand people who don't believe that about Daniel Jones, that say they're like a 7-win team because of the schedule. But I think Jones is going to have a very good year. I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL this year by year's end. So if I believe that, and I believe in Daboll, I have to go into the year expecting at least 9 wins. So it's playoffs for me this year. But could I see a scenario where they win 8 games and they play really tough within the division, and maybe they have a couple of hard luck losses, and me, digesting the year and being like, all right, we showed a lot of growth. We're definitely going in the right direction. Absolutely. But my expectations going into the year, playoffs.
That's fair. Are you a superstitious kind of guy where
I wore a hoodie for like 4 weeks straight? Absolutely a superstitious guy.
There you go. That answered that one pretty quickly. Do you have a game day routine? Something that you do specifically in an order, mannerism that you have to do, because if you don't, something will horribly go wrong?
I'm trying to find it. I don't know where it is right now. I got to find it before the year starts. Yeah. So last year at halftime at every game, I put on the Giants shades to try to give the team a boost. So I'm definitely a very superstitious guy for sure. And do I actually believe in it? No, but I think it just adds to the fun of it, of being a fan.
Sure.
So yeah, I definitely I think more so for the fun aspect of it. But I definitely am superstitious come game day for the Giants. Absolutely. I'll eat the same breakfast if the team's playing well. I'll wear the same jersey, the hoodie, whatever it may be.
What's the Tana having food wise on game day? Is there a specific thing you're snacking, munching on? Is there a specific halftime thing you want to scarf down? What's the game day food routine like for you?
I mean, if I'm going to somebody's house, whatever you give me, I'm going to eat. I could eat anything. But if it's dealer's choice and I could pick, I mean, you can't go wrong with wings. That's the ultimate football food, right? Wings. Pizza's great. I mean, if you get it from the right place. I love the big Italian heroes on Super Bowl parties that I'll go to, right? You get the 6-foot subs. But yeah, I think wings and beer, like that's the staple when it comes to football, right?
Now, what kind of wings? You just take the plain wings? Or are you nope, I need some type of specific type of wings? Like ideally, what's your wing move?
Yeah, I'm not a big. I think just in general, like when I go out and with my friends every once in a while, we'll go to a bar and we'll order wings, and they get all these extravagant types of wings, the General Tso's. I don't even know. Like I'm not like I'm like that. Just in general, I'm kind of like old fashioned. Like when it comes to goldfish, I like the original goldfish, or I like the just the cheese goldfish. I don't get like the extravagant ones. When it comes to potato chips, I'm not a barbecue chip guy. Just give me the traditional Lay's. That's just me. So when it comes to wings, I like them hot. but I don't need these extravagant flavors. Just give me traditional buffalo sauce wings. I don't need the bells and the whistles.
Okay. Here's the biggest question of all. You get these buffalo wings. Is it ranch or is it blue cheese?
Neither. I don't like ranch and blue cheese. I do it plain. I make sure I have celery to cool it down a bit, but I go plain with the buffalo wings.
So neither. Very
Yeah.
impressive. Very,
Yeah.
very old school. Seems like Chris here is quite traditional here. Doesn't like to mess with the palate.
Well, no, that's not true. I definitely have. I definitely. I mean, I eat pretty extravagant things. Like I'll go
Yeah.
octopus. I'll eat sushi. I'll eat. You know,
Nice.
I could eat some extravagant things, but when it comes to like staples, I mean, if I get a hot dog, I'm putting mustard and sauerkraut. That's it. I don't need relish. I don't need onions. I don't need cheese. But I definitely dabble with different types of foods.
So Jay wants to know why I'm interviewing like Taylor Swift. Jay, because we want to get to know Chris, and that's part of the thing here. If I'm curious, I'm going to ask the question. Here's another one. Since Chris is a single man here, blonde or dark-haired women?
I honestly, I don't discriminate when it comes to women.
And that is the right answer.
Blonde hair, brown hair, black hair, skin tone. I don't discriminate. But if you're asking me, pick one.
Sure.
Most guys go blonde. I actually go with brunette. If ideally, like if you're like you're building the prototypical woman,
Sure.
brunette.
All right. What are you doing in your spare time? You said there were all these dead times where you're not now. Obviously, you know.
Oh,
there's these
I'm
dead
working
times
now.
of football. So you're definitely working outside of work and Giants. When you have some dead time, what are the other Chris hobbies? What are you doing with your life? Are you a movie guy, a TV
Big
guy, a
movie guy.
music guy?
Big movie guy.
Battle
Actually,
off some of your favorite movies. Go. Don't think
what
about it. Just battle them.
my favorite movies?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite actor is Tom Cruise. So you name a Tom Cruise movie, I love it. All the Mission Impossibles. My favorite movie of all time is Lord of the Rings. All three of them. I consider it one movie. But there's so many.
Nice.
Yeah, but you name it, I've seen it. My first job was at a movie theater. I worked at a movie theater for 3 years. So any movie that came out between 2002 and 2004 or 5, I saw it probably 3 times. I'm a huge movie guy. As a matter of fact, when I first started on YouTube, I was 50-50. Should I do a movie channel or a sports channel? I decided to go with a sports channel. But yeah, I have the movie pass. So I go to the movie theaters at least once a week. I saw the Mission Impossible 3 times in theaters because I don't got to pay for it. I saw Oppenheimer twice in theaters. So I'm a huge movie guy, big movie guy.
So, Jay brings up, you said Tom Cruise. Vanilla Sky, your thoughts?
Vanilla Sky is a movie that I do not think is appreciated nearly enough. When Vanilla Sky first came out, I kind of got like mediocre reviews. Like it was like a 60. I went back and watched it like 6 months ago, year ago, because I love Tom Cruise. I always want to give his movies another chance. That movie's awesome. It's definitely a movie that makes you think. The acting in it is great. Cameron Diaz is awesome in it. She's like this crazy she's insane in that movie. She's great. That's one of Tom Cruise's best acting performances. He's great in it. It's definitely a different type of movie, and I think it's a movie you have to watch at least 2 or 3 times to fully appreciate. But yeah, I'm a big fan. It's probably not my top 10 Cruise movies, but it's still a very good movie.
What's your least favorite Tom Cruise movie?
I didn't see The Mummy. I refused to see it because everybody said it was so bad, and I wanted him to have almost like a unblemished record. So because I like almost everything the guy does, so I didn't see The Mummy. So that would probably be my least favorite. But in terms of like his most popular movies, I think I'd go with the original Top Gun, and I like it, but I think it's very overrated. I like it, but the new Top Gun, that's another story. That was awesome, but the original Top Gun, I think it's a bit overrated.
Okay, fair enough. So you're a big movie guy. You said you've already seen Oppenheimer twice. I've seen it 0 times. I'm gonna maybe that one. That's a theater one, but that's a maybe. I like Cillian Murphy.
Oppenheimer.
There's a draw of some of the cast itself, right? I'm a big Cillian Murphy guy. I like that guy's acting.
He's awesome.
He's awesome. So
yeah,
big fan. That's part of the draw there. But I don't know how much I feel like watching about the atomic bomb. I don't know.
Here's what I'll say. Robert Downey Jr. incredible. I thought he was probably the best. Murphy was great. If you're going to go to the theaters to see it, in my personal opinion, and I don't claim to be like this movie snob, like these people who like act like they're like, I go to the movies to be entertained.
Yes.
Period. I just told you I like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is not the best actor. but he makes the most entertaining movies. I go to the movies to be entertained. So I'm not a guy that's going to pretend to be this movie snob that is this cinematographer, whatever, these experts who say, oh, you got to see it in 70 millimeters. You have to see it in IMAX. I saw it in IMAX because I bought into the hype. Do not, in my opinion, do not pay for IMAX for Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer, it was great, a very good movie. And the second time I saw it, it was even better. I think it's a movie you really have to digest twice because it's 3 hours long. There's so much going on. And if you don't go into the movie like knowing all the aspects of it, they don't kind of hold your hand. They just throw a bunch at you. And it's a lot to digest the first time. At least for me, it was. The second time I saw it, when I knew what to expect, I liked it a lot more. Like it went from like an 8.5 for me to like a 9.5. Like it's really good. The acting's fantastic. But the IMAX, not worth it. It's not worth the extra $8 or $9. The movie is basically a drama, start to finish. There's a lot of scenes where they're basically just sitting in a courtroom talking to each other. And there's maybe 5 or 6 minutes. I'll go even as far as 10 minutes because there's definitely a lot of sound aspects from within the movie I could see being enhanced by the IMAX.
Sure.
But it's not worth the extra 12. Like you could still enjoy the movie the same, in my opinion, without seeing an IMAX.
So Authentic brought this up. Killers of the Flower Moon by Scorsese comes out. Shout out to Authentic for being here, number one. Number two, I'm looking forward to that movie because my favorite actor is Leonardo DiCaprio. So
he's awesome.
That's my guy. So I'm looking forward to. I actually saw the trailer for that yesterday. My wife and I went to go see. I think it's called Talk to Me, the horror movie that just came out.
I want to see that. That's probably what I'm going to see this weekend. Actually, it's getting good reviews.
Let me know what you think after. It was good. That is a good movie. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I would say that's probably my favorite genre is finding horror, but like good horror, not the slasher kind of stuff. Good horror is hard to find.
There's definitely good horror movies fairly recently here and there, but I have found. And by the way, the Killer of the Moon movie looks awesome. Anytime you compare Scorsese with DiCaprio and De Niro,
win.
I do like horror, and I do think there's been a couple of gems over the last 3 or 4 years in the horror genre, but I've been really disappointed with some of these, in my opinion. And if you like horror, you probably saw some of them. I didn't love Black Phone. People hyped that movie up like it was out of this world great.
That was the problem. And
I'm a big fan of Ethan Hawke. The mask looked great. Yeah. I saw the movie. I'm like, what did I just watch?
Too predictable. Way too predictable.
That got like a 90% on Rotten. I don't want to ruin anything for complaints for people that haven't seen it that may be listening. I didn't even think it was good. I thought it was like.
I thought it was good. My biggest issue with that movie was the predictability was way too much. Like I could have.
The acting was bad too.
I could have probably came up with that movie in my sleep. As far as the plot, not the acting. The plot itself was way too predictable.
Did you see Barbarian?
No.
All right, Barbarian's another one that got like a 93%. I thought it was like 10%. I thought it was awful. So
now, when you go to Rotten Tomatoes, what percentage are you looking at? I ignore the actual critics. I look at the audience. I go by the audience because I don't care about. I'm not a critic, so I don't care about the way they think.
Yeah.
Plus, they give terrible reviews to great movies. Nacho Libre is a killer movie.
Nacho Libre is great.
And Rotten Tomatoes hates it, so they can go do one, bro. But I go with what the audience says, generally what people think, and that's probably it. Nacho Libre is amazing. But yeah, back to a little bit of football, but we can talk movies all day. I'm loving me some movies.
I could talk movies for the next 5 hours if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey,
Mark Thompson just named one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way.
Inception. Again, if it's a Leonardo DiCaprio world, I'm already there. My favorite Leonardo DiCaprio movie is The Departed. Big Departed fan.
Departed. I'm going to say this. This may be sacrilegious.
Sure.
Because everybody loves Goodfellas. How do you not?
Love it.
Departed is the greatest gangster movie of all time.
That's fair.
In my opinion.
That's fair.
The twists are incredible. The acting's incredible.
Unbelievable.
Who's your favorite character in The Departed?
Mark Wahlberg. Probably Mark Wahlberg.
You hit it on the head. Wahlberg. He's only got like a 15-20 minute part.
Yeah, and I'm not even his lines are killer. Everything
I'm
he
not
does
even a big fan of Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
In that movie, he's one of my favorite characters ever. He's so good. He was great.
If you happen to be on this and you haven't seen the movie, sucks to be you because it's been out forever. So if I say something, it's not my fault. It's yours. It's been out for. It's such a great movie, man. It's absolutely. I'm not the person who can say, when somebody says, "What's your favorite movie?" I've seen so many. I can't give you one, right? It's really, really hard to do for me because there's so many that if you bring up, I could be like, "Oh, that too." But if I really gun to my head, The Departed kind of up there in that conversation.
That's my top 10 movies of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I always sneak over to the horror genre because that is probably my favorite. It's probably horror and then like psychological thrillers, which is everyone's talking about Inception. I loved
How
Inception
do you not love Inception?
because of the again psychological aspect of
And
it.
and,
Absolutely
and I
loved
got
it.
I got to give credit to one more director,
Sure,
Quentin Tarantino. Everything the guy does, in my opinion, is gold.
sure.
I friggin' loved. I mean, to me, he has Django Unchained in my top 10 movies of all time.
Yep.
Inglourious Bastards is probably my top 10 movies of all time.
Very underrated.
And Pulp
Very
Fiction
underrated.
is probably in my top 10 movies of all. Pulp Fiction changed the movie game. For when it came out, there wasn't movies that I had when I saw Pulp Fiction for the first time, I'm like, I have never seen a movie like that. He is the best storyteller of all time. The way that he's able to develop a story, even what was the one with Samuel L. Jackson with it and Kurt Russell, The Hateful Eight. Even that one, the whole movie is basically in one room, but he somehow is able to maintain suspense for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Tarantino touches something, it's gold. The guy doesn't miss for me.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. But Inglourious Basterds is very underrated, very underrated movie. Who's your breakout player next year? And don't give me the Daniel Jones, don't give me the Saquon, don't give me the easies. I don't want the easies. Who's that person who's going to take some type of next productive step that isn't the obvious choice?
I want to say Daniel Jones, but no, I'm not going to take the easy way out.
Sure.
Breakout play. All right, I've been pumping this guy up, and all these players depends on health.
Sure, 100%.
I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you one on offense and one on defense.
I like it.
Kayvon, breakout.
Okay.
Kayvon's going to break out this year.
He's finally going to get the holding calls, right? He's finally going to get those calls.
He's going to get the holding calls. Now he's got help on the other side with Aziz. If he could stay on the field, we got an improved defensive line. Year two, you just figure he's going to get better. So, and last year, he showed glimpses of not just being great, elite. Like, he showed elite traits for me. You didn't see it every game because he's a rookie, but you said to yourself, yeah, this could be a guy that religiously gets 10 to 12 sacks a year. Like, he showed those traits for me. So I think he's going to break out. I think he's going to have a big year. And offensively, if he could stay on the field, Paris Campbell. I've always been a big Paris Campbell fan. And you go back, watch my my draft breakdowns in 2019. I wanted the Giants to draft him badly in the second round. I was a big fan of him out of Ohio State. And I just think he fits the scheme so well because he is truly a guy that could play all over because he's tall, he's fast, but he's traditionally in the slot. It's what he played at Ohio State, but he's definitely a guy that's capable of doing both. Yeah, I think Paris Campbell, if he stays on the field, he's going to be a household name by year's end. I think he's going to have a big year for the Giants.
The Giants do have some, Jay Ferry said about secret weapons. I will say they have some sneaky weapons. They got some guys that you might not be thinking about that are going to produce better than you expect.
Daniel Bellinger.
Well, that's my guy, man. Especially in 12 personnel, he can just eat. He can absolutely be able to eat between Waller, Saquon, Campbell, Hyatt, whoever they put out there, all eyes, and then he leaks out at the 12. And guess what? As athletic as he is, that 3-4 yard flat, he can easily turn into 8 to 15. And if I get 8 to 15 every single time, what am I complaining about?
I could definitely see Bellinger being more involved in this offense than people think.
Yep.
Because they think like chameleons, man. They're willing to adjust their offense based on the opponent. And I definitely could see them using a lot of 12 personnel and using Bellinger a lot more in the passing game than people think. Because obviously, all the eyes are going to be on Waller, and you're going to have Bellinger with great matchups. So yeah, I'm not saying he's going to catch for 1,000 yards, but I could see Bellinger being a nice 400 or 500 yard receiver this year, and maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns being utilized a lot in the red zone. So
yeah, and then you add that to Waller's production. Then you look at the overall tight end production. You're going to end up probably pretty happy, like you said. Sans anyone getting hurt, health is obviously key in everything we're saying here. But in this case, do you think Waller's going to end up as productive and dominant as he looks right now in practice?
Yes.
Yeah, it's practice, but do we? Yep, translating.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, he's got to be healthy, but yes, I think he's going to get pelleted with targets. I do. I think they're going to. Well, it's also going to depend on what the defense does, but the defense is going to have to make their decision. Are you going to try to stop Saquon and Daniel Jones in the run game? If you do that, yeah, I think Waller's going to be heavily featured in that game. Like, if you make Jones beat you with his arm, he's going at Waller a lot this year. I think he's going to be very, very heavily targeted.
Yeah, I would say if you even remove talent a little bit, let's just say some of these guys are subpar. Let's just call them average as far as talent production. Just the fact that they're 4-4, 4-3 guys alone adds pressure to a defense.
Yeah,
Because
of course.
even the average talent skill guy with that attribute can hurt you. So when you put a big slot like Paris Campbell, who runs a 4-3 and then a 4-4, and I saw Darren Wall at training camp the other day. That guy sticks out like a tree in the forest. I mean, he is tall as hell. I
Yeah.
didn't know he was that tall, but
He's 6'6", right?
yeah, but I mean, he looked way, way taller. I was like, wait, Darren Waller is huge.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, yeah, there's going to be some, I think, some plus matchups on the offense and how we take advantage. And it's going to get very, very interesting. I do think with Dayball's offense and Kafka coming with the experience, both have a ton of experience with tight ends, right?
Yeah.
Kelsey, Gronk, all that good stuff. They know how to use the tight end, so it's been exciting since they brought in Waller, just because of their past history. Like you said, they know how to adjust to a scheme, and now you have a movable weapon like Waller, and then you have the complete in Bellinger, where the guy can block very solidly, but great hands, runs routes, and can bring all that to your table. So there's a lot of potential. Now the biggest question is going to be, is it going to all translate? Can they put it together and go from 18, 20 points to 23, 24? So now that tie that shouldn't have happened becomes a win on your end.
Right.
That one where you were down 3 points or a touchdown, you're actually able to maybe push to another possession or be able to a win on your side. So if you've looked at the schedule at all, what's it looking like to you? If you had to put a number on it, 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, where are you with the schedule?
I'm talking myself into 10. I'm trying to go into the year conservative and say 9. But if I'm being completely honest, I'm leaning more towards 10.
Yeah.
Because every time I look at the schedule, I convince myself. I say to myself, Chris, if you believe in Jones like you do, and I do, I think he's going to be a very good quarterback this year. I'm not going to say great.
Sure.
If you believe in Dable like you do, I see 10 wins on this schedule. I keep telling myself that every time I look at the schedule, I see 10 wins. But I'm going to go in conservative. I'm going to say 9, but I'm leaning more towards 10.
Yeah, I'm where you are. I said 11 when I initially looked at it. I haven't looked at it since, and I'm sticking with my 11 because I always give myself a plus or minus margin of error, which I'm going to give myself 2 games. I'm kind of where you are, right? I'm where you are conservatively. I'm somewhere between 9 and 11. I think if everything kind of breaks right, it's the 11. If things kind of flip flop a little bit, you're closer to the 9. But I'm with you. I'm between the 9 and the 11.
All right.
And
I'm going to look at the schedule.
Authentic's going to bring it up, actually. So I'm going to actually rattle these off for you.
Yeah.
And we can just call wins and losses right here.
Yeah. I'm gonna look at it as we go. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yep. And Authentic brings up which are going to be.
Don't even bother with the division games. I'm saying 3-3 there. So let's start there. I think we split with Dallas. I think we sweep Washington, and I think we get swept by the Eagles. But what I will say is you may get a sneaky win at the end of the year against the Eagles because they may not need the game. But I'll go into the year saying a split, 3-3. So let's not even go over the division.
So we'll skip the divisional ones. We'll go right to everybody else. So all right, if we go right into week 1, we're skipping that. Week 2 Cardinals
win without Kyler Murray win.
Okay. Week 3 49ers
loss.
Week 4 short week, I believe, right? That's the
long week, long extra rest.
The week before is a short week to the Niners. You're right. The Niners is a short week, and the long week, and then you have the Seahawks at home.
They're coming across. So now I'm at 5 wins because I got 3 in the division. 5 wins so far.
Okay. Dolphins on the road.
I'm giving us a win either against Miami or the Jets. So I'll go. If I go loss with Miami, I'll go win with Jets. I think we win one of those games. So I'll go loss with Miami.
Okay. On the road, Buffalo.
That's my surprise win of the year. Okay. And I'm going to explain why. I'm always going to pick a surprise win, and I'm going to pick a surprise loss as we do this.
Okay.
That's my surprise win of the year. Same reason why we beat the Ravens last year. Wink, familiarity with the Baltimore Ravens, with Lamar Jackson. Who's more familiar with the Buffalo Bills than Joe Shane and Brian Dable? And I think it just sets up as a game where you're going up against a quarterback that is not allergic to turning the ball over. And if the Giants can turn it over a few times and Jones kind of does what he did last year and doesn't make mistakes, I could see us beating them kind of like we beat the Ravens last year. So I always like to pick one surprise. I don't want to be boring and just go, oh, we're going
Sure,
to lose
all the
to every,
standards.
yeah, we're going to lose to every team because that's not going to happen. There's going to be one or two surprise wins, and there's going to be one or two surprise losses. So that's my surprise win of the year. I'm going to go win against Buffalo.
Okay,
That's it.
then you have the Jets, and we're the home team in that game.
I'm good.
And
Yeah,
you
because we're
gave
skipping Washington. So
yep.
7 wins. I said I'm going to take either a win against Miami or the Jets. So I'm going to give us a win against the Jets. 7.
Okay, Raiders on the road.
I'm going to go loss. I said I'm going to give a surprise loss. I'll go surprise loss there.
Okay, fair enough. Uh, Patriots at home.
I worry about this one a little bit because you got the bye week the next week. So do the Giants, do they go in, thinking about the bye? Do they look past this game? Do they take New England for granted? But because I made my surprise loss against the Raiders, I will go win here for New England. So that's 8.
Yeah, and I would think if Dayball came from Buffalo, I don't think he's ever sleeping on New England. He should have
Yeah.
enough in there going in. Packers at home.
And this is a tough one because we don't know what Love is going to be. But going into the year, coming off the bye with a coaching staff with another week to prepare at home, I got to go win. That's 9.
Yeah, and it's Jordan Love's first year versus Wink, right?
Yeah.
So I'm also hanging my hat on certain attributes there. You got the Saints on the road.
I'm going to go loss. Tough place to play. I'll go
Tough
loss.
place to play. Agreed. And then last one you have is the Rams at home.
Win. We should beat them. That's 10 wins. And that's with me only having what I think is one unreasonable win for most people's standards with the Bills and
Sure.
having a loss against the Raiders. Like, I don't think when you look at this schedule, I don't think it's crazy to think we can win 10 games. I really don't.
No,
I really don't. And I had a loss against the Saints, which I think a lot of Giants fans will have as a win.
That's going to be a tough game, man. Playing in New
It's going to
Orleans
be a tough game.
And Derek Carr isn't a scrub either. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I think 10 is more than fair. I mean, if you can win 9 with last year's roster, with all the turnovers and firsts, it's not unfair to think you go from 9 to 10. That's not a major leap in anybody's world to be. I can be one win better with improved roster, second year, added weapons, added etc., more talent. That's very, very fair to say that.
I don't think splitting the division's egregious. We should have been 2-4 in the division last year. We tied with Washington.
Why is that egregious to say splitting it? You think it's got to be 4-2 or nothing else? You go 2. All right, so you think it's going to be 2-4?
Yeah, that's fair, but I think we're going to get 3. I think I've said it since the schedule came out. I think everything sets up well week 1 against Dallas. I'm going to explain why.
I've said this numerous times. Week 1, Dallas, it's a win. I'm bookmarking it. It's going to be a win.
Yeah, I'm going to say why. I trust our coaching staff a lot more than theirs. And if you give Brian Daboll 2 months, 3 months to prepare for a game, I'm going to take my chances with him. We saw it last year when he played the Tennessee Titans in a game that nobody gave us a chance in.
Sure.
And it's a new offense. I know that McCarthy's calling the plays, but it's a new offense for Dallas. I just think and we're home. I just love the way it sets up to start the season. I really think we're going to beat Dallas. I do. I really think we're going to beat Dallas.
I think the big surprise win, like you have one, is actually going to be a divisional surprise win. I think you do a little bit of an upset Christmas Philly. That's my surprise win.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think we're going to find a way to get 3. Whether it's a split against the Eagles, a split against Dallas, split against Washington, a sweep against Washington, I think we're getting 3 divisional wins. It wouldn't shock me if we knocked off the Eagles, especially in the last game of the year where it wouldn't mean much. So going into the year, I think it's reasonable to say to yourself, this team can win 3 divisional games. I'm not going crazy. I'm not saying 4-2. I'm saying 500 in division that we should have went 2-4 last year. Absolutely should have beaten the Washington both times last year. Yep. So I don't think it's crazy to think with upgrades, with another year with this coaching staff, that we could get an extra win in the division. I don't think that's crazy at all.
Yeah, and I feel way more comfortable about beating Dallas than I do Philly at this point because that roster is still stacked. And I think you're closer to Dallas, even with the upgrades. Like you said, coaching being a big reason. They lost their OC, brought in a new OC, right? Kellen Moore left. So now you're going to have a little bit more changes. Pick 6 King hopefully continues his streak into another year. That would be amazing for everybody. So I definitely think Dallas is going to be winnable and 100%. I really think beating Philly in Philly is a big one. But again, that could just be me just being a naive fan at the end of the day. But
we don't know.
guys,
We don't.
we
Those
don't
games
know.
are so far. Like going into the year, yeah, of course, you're looking at those Eagles games, or most fans are looking at those Eagles games as losses, rightfully so.
Not me.
That's not till like week 15. You
Yeah.
don't know what the Eagles are going to look like by week 15.
Or what we're gonna look like. What if
You
we
don't
hit
like
a stride, right?
so it's like it's fun to do the win loss thing, but it's meaningless. It's meaningless before the year starts. It's such a week to week league, but I really don't. I really don't think it's far fetched at all to believe this team could go 3-3 in division this year. Did you freeze or did I? Oh, okay. I thought you froze.
Oh no, I was just
Okay.
I was typing in the chat to make people know that I don't care about Philly. They don't scare me.
I
Yeah,
hate the Eagles. I hate the Eagles.
they beat us, and kudos to them. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna argue that they beat us. Absolutely, you got it. Cool.
Yeah.
You still lost another Super Bowl because you suck.
It doesn't listen. Teams going into last year, people thought the Rams were going to be really good. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl. Teams, I'm not saying it's going to happen with the Eagles, but if you told me, Chris, is it possible that the Eagles could win 8 or 9 games if things fall apart next year and they have a few injuries? No, it's not impossible. It's the NFL.
Sure.
You can't predict the NFL, especially when you play them that late in the year. So I'm not writing any game off as an automatic L. I'm not. I'm not writing. Yeah. But authentic injuries happen. And the Eagles have an old offensive line that over the last couple of years has been able to stay healthy, but they have an old offensive line. Bradbury's old at the corner spot. Like it's not like they don't have guys who could get hurt. So we'll see.
Hopefully in our favor. So before I let you go, tell everyone where they can find you if they don't know, which is ridiculous, but you should still tell people where they can find you. Right
there, where it says Entertainah. You can find me there. Entertainah Talking Sports. I've been doing Talking Giants for the last 5-6 years on YouTube. So I'm going to be doing a lot more Talking Giants this year. Absolutely love doing it. Had a lot of fun coming on here tonight. Talking Giants, talking movies. Had a nice little 15-minute discussion there about movies. Where can you get Tana movie reviews? I actually have a movie channel that I probably should start to upload on, and maybe I will. It didn't get many views, and I kind of got busy with my job, but maybe I will start doing that because I go to movies all the time. So it's called Entertainah Talking Movies. I haven't uploaded on it over 2 years, but it's Entertainah Talking Movies. You can find me there.
Let me know when you do that. We can talk movies. That'll be fun.
Yeah. But I had a lot of fun. Definitely would love to come back on, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate you. But before you go, just got a quick one. Favorite Giants memory, if you can give me one. If not, you can read off a couple. That again, just what sticks to you in the emotion bank.
It's got to be the first Super Bowl that I got to see. It's got to be knocking off the undefeated Patriots. I mean, I could give you 10 great memories, but if you're asking me only one, it's got to be knocking off the undefeated Patriots. And I don't even want to single it out to that one game, that entire playoff run, specifically starting with the Dallas game. Like Tampa Bay was a nice win. It was nice to see Eli get his first playoff win against Jeff Garcia. But then you get to Dallas, and I'm going to be honest, going into that game, I think we're going to lose. Dallas was like, they were calling them the New England Patriots light that year. They had the
13-3.
Yeah, 13-3, second best offense in football. And it kind of felt like that game was going their way for the first 27 minutes, 28 minutes. And then Eli Manning, with 54 seconds, starts with the ball on his own 20-yard line. He goes down the field. He scores a touchdown before halftime, and that just flipped the momentum. And then the Giants beat the Cowboys. Then they go into the frozen tundra in negative 9,000-degree weather where Coughlin looks like his face is going to fall off. Plaxico burst. I still say it to this day. Debate me all you want. It is the greatest performance, not just in Giants history, in the history of football by a wide receiver. When you factor in everything, NFC Championship game, you're going up against an all-pro corner. You're playing in negative 30-degree weather, and he undresses one of the best corners in football. The Giants go on, they knock off the Green Bay Packers, and then they knock off the undefeated Patriots.
I'll add to your Plexico narrative here on a bum ankle. Remember, he barely practiced that entire season, busted ankle. He speaks about it that he couldn't even feel that ankle while trying to run routes and how he couldn't even get off. And he still took out that all-pro corner.
Real quick, I got to look at the box score of that game. 2008 Giants, Packers, championship game box score. I want to see, I want to say he had 130 yards, and I think Eli threw for Eli threw for 251. He actually threw for more yards in that game than I thought. But in those elements, he had 151 yards in like negative 30 degrees with one of the top 3 corners in the NFL going up against him in an NFC championship game.
On a bum foot.
Best performance I've ever seen a wide receiver have. And then they go to the Super Bowl and they knock off the undefeated Patriots. So that entire run is my favorite memory as a Giant. I don't even want to just single it out to the Super Bowl because that entire run was so special.
That's fair, man. That's fair. All right, Chris, man, I appreciate you having on. Appreciate everyone who stuck on. It was just good chatting, not only talking football, but getting to know you a little bit. Definitely going to have you back on again as the season goes, and we can come back to how trash Philly is, because that's always a good one. So for Jay Ferries, yes, that was the Webster interception against Brett Favre in OT.
Yeah, OT. That was Brett Favre's last completion as a Packer, was to Corey Webster.
That is correct. All right, Chris, appreciate it. Thank you for everybody being on, and we'll definitely catch you later, man.
Be good, guys.